Okay, today I'm going to talk about stalking and the Occam razor principle, organized stalking. But right now, as you can see, I have this over my head. They're heating my head up. I finally got one of these things. It's gel all the way around it, and you keep it in the freezer. And instead of having to put a towel open, because sometimes when you put the towel in the freezer wet and you go to rip it open and perform it on your head, it'll rip open holes. Well, this way, I don't have to do that. Um, and they're heating me up right now, and this is perfectly cold. I've had it on for about 8 or 9 minutes so far, and it's still cold. It's so cold, it really cools you down. It really works, and I got this for $8.99 on Amazon. So, and that's called King something. Um, but anyway, it really feels good if they heat your head up and you need something that works. Okay, so if you are of the world would love his own, but because you're not of the world, because I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. And remember, the servant is no greater than his master. So that's John 15:19 and 20. So I'm going to get started on this information I have for you today. Okay, organized stalking and gaslighting is based on the Occam razor principle and non-cooperative gaming theory, hypergame theory. Organized stalking and gaslighting tactics are how government contractors constantly discredit and set up and trap their victims to neutralize activists, dissidents, whistleblowers, or anyone they consider a threat while simultaneously provoking their victims into emotional responses which can be remotely measured and integrated back into the remote neural monitor data. Government contractors rely on a global paradigm to keep their stalker army of informants, provocateurs, stalkers, forcing the individual into scripted mind games where the victim is forced to respond, to function, and survive. It's done to appear common, ordinary, and expected to the casual observer, and even try and claim it's happening makes the victim appear delusional. It's it's often a violent, sometimes deadly game based on the Occam razor principle and other models of deception and manipulation. They must constantly provoke the victim and capture the trauma based mind control's active memory, attention or active memory at regular intervals to map out and reverse engineer the will, intellect, and emotion of the trauma based mind control victim. It's how the technology works. They use the physical and psychological trauma to map out and reverse engineer the sensory and neural pathways. It involves repetitive reinforcement using tactics which can be explained away to the casual observer. So they sensitize the target to gaslighting and stalking when the target individual finally responds to repeated daily minor or severe social aggressions. The delusional or mentally unstable depiction is reinforced because these stalkers always use plausible deniability. So, we were talking about gaslighting the other day in this house, and a truck pulled up that said gaslight, and it stayed in front of our house for about 5 minutes. So that's an example right there of them saying, okay, we know what you're thinking, we know what you're saying, and all that. Like we just now talked about gaslight, and then a truck pulls up that says gaslight on it. Okay, at that point, the government informants and then pull bait and switch with law enforcement and the whistleblower set up and trapped. Hypergame theory is a mathematical model and basically game theory applied to decision tree modeling, mathematically proven that by constantly perpetually altering any value in the model, one can constantly and perpetually alter that model's expected outcome. With the CIA trauma-based mind control, the model is the mind control victim. So by constantly and perpetually altering any value in daily life, daily activities of the mind control victim, the CIA, DIA, hive mind teams hiding behind and using law enforcement agents to do their dirty work for over 2 decades can alter the value in any daily life, daily activities of the victim. They're using three interfaces to attack, injure, and kill whistleblowers, activists, and dissidents: brain to computer interface, brain to brain interface, and brain to cloud interface. Extremely low frequency waves are used to torture the victim in a near incoherency where the government contractors then capitalize off the mistakes or poor decisions they force the victims to make. The more trivial, paltry, fancy, and fantastic the tactics used against the mind control victim, then by default, the more trivial, fantastic complaints of the victim that these trivial, fantastic tactics are happening. So the victim's discredited while simultaneously the trauma-based mind control contractors achieve their goal of constantly provoking the victim into repeated emotional response patterns trying to function and survive, which can be remotely measured and integrated back into the remote neural monitoring data. Hypergame theory is achieved perpetually by basing one next move off the opponent's last move, meaning the game never ends because there's always a higher optimum to choose from, always a next move to be made. Hence, the game never ends because the system must constantly provoke you into sensory and neural responses to engineer patterns of multisynaptic responses. One response is not enough. They need multiple responses of the same behavior to determine coherent patterns of thought or verification. Only then can those synaptic responses be integrated back in the remote neural data as the conscious supercomputer continues to build a cognitive model of your will, intellect, and emotion for research, training, and development. So the hypergame process is endless and can be triggered at will by the attackers many times. You only notice the remote neural attacks are happening if you learn to read active memory. In order for the hypergame theory to work, meaning these mind control hive mind teams to make a next move, they must force the mind control victim to move or respond first. The object of being force the victim into endless series of synaptic responses each day, meaning to place the victim into and keep the victim inside a psychotronic concentration camp, which is sort of the combination of the two movies, The Exorcist and The Truman Show. This is why the victim is surrounded and boxed in constantly, for as soon as the victim's chosen for this technology, all apartments, homes, hotels next to and around the victims are sublet, and the mind control victim hive mind teams, in the trauma based hive mind teams, surveillance teams, organized stalkers move in, and training and research development, culminating in the cold blooded murder or incapacitation of the victim once training, research, and development ends. Dead men don't talk. What I mean is they trigger engineer chaos and trauma in the victim's daily life and daily activities, and then wait for the victim to respond to that fabricated torture, trauma, and chaos which the victim must do to function and survive, thereby forcing the victim into an endless series of counter moves throughout the day just trying to function and survive inside a psychotronic concentration camp because of the physical and psychological trauma and torture. Each counter move is an invoked potential which can be remotely measured and integrated back into remote neural monitoring data. Now I'm going to share a video real quick. It's like a 2-minute video of a sheriff speaking about the stalking stuff.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to voice my opinion and to participate in this conversation in this very serious topic. I personally have 35 and a half years experience as a law enforcement officer, including local, county, and federal law enforcement. I thought I was well versed in everything that was going on out there in society as far as law enforcement. However, when my friend came to me with this, I realized that it was something that I needed to educate myself on or be educated about. And I was very surprised to learn that things like this happen in today's society, today's world. Seems like we're going backwards with the civil rights movements and racism. And to think that people could be so mean to other people or dedicate so much time and energy into making one feel so uncomfortable in their own home or in their own environment is very upsetting to me, and it should be upsetting to you as well. When my friend first came to me with this, I was a little bit bewildered. Not that I didn't believe her, because I know her character for many, many years. And if she were to tell me something, I would have no reason to doubt her. But after listening, investigating, researching, and improving my knowledge in the area of this, which includes stalking, community stalking, harassment, I became educated, and I observed this firsthand. I experienced this together with her and on my own. It became very obvious that this is a problem that exists in the United States. You'll find others on YouTube, TikTok, and other platforms that express and pass their experiences on to others in order to share this information to help protect others and assist in working through it.